Hello and welcome here to more TALKFCB and welcome to something completely new. We are going to be talking today about Formula 1, the Monaco Grand Prix. I've wanted to do something like this, got to be honest, for quite a while now, and with the season over, with everything wrapped up on the footballing side, I thought why not? Today, it's Monaco, there was rain, there was excitement, there was drama. We are going to be going through the entirety of the race, where it was won, where it was lost, and discussing all of the big moments. I really do hope that you guys will enjoy this, so without further ado, let's get to it. And if we do begin, first of all, with the starting grid for the Grand Prix, it was Guan Yu Zhou alongside Latifi at the back, Lance Stroll alongside Gasly, who of course was pretty unlucky in qualifying on Saturday, Albon and Mick Schumacher, Ricciardo, who continues to have a very difficult time right now at McLaren, alongside Magnussen, Bottas then and Yuki Tsunoda, Ocon, Sebastian Vettel they're getting into Q3, Lewis Hamilton in 8th, alongside Fernando Alonso, of course the old teammates there, ready to do battle again. George Russell in 6th, Norris in 5th, and then it was the world champion, Max Verstappen in 4th, alongside Perez, who of course crashed out at the end of qualifying. He was in 3rd, and it was a Ferrari front row lockout. Leclerc in his home race, of course, starting on pole in this one. But of course, guys, before we even got underway for the race, the rain came. And I think in Monaco, when the rain comes, that is like a jackpot. That is the one thing that going into this race you're thinking, if something can happen, if there is going to be a bit of excitement, a bit of drama, something uncertain, it's got to be down to the weather. And the rain did come and it was really, really heavy. And then I have to say, I think the decisions from the FIA, it was strange for me, to see there that the race was outright delayed. It was said there'll be a formation lap behind the safety car to start the race. And I think everybody was sort of sitting around thinking, what are we waiting for right now? Because of course the tyres were there, wet tyres went on. There was talks as well about intermediate, but I think as it got more and more heavy, it was always going to be the wet tyres. And the FIA said in the end that it was due to safety reasons that they gave the teams a little bit more time. But as you can see here, the race did begin under the safety car. These were formation laps. They weren't race laps there. The race time had not started at that point, and obviously the safety car, driven of course by Bert Mailander, his birthday. He had a busy day in Monaco today, and I think very, very quickly you can see the rain coming down, especially in certain parts there of the track. It was building up, really poor visibility. I think the swimming pool section, that very much lived up to his name in that moment. And a lot of the drivers were saying on the team radio, it's raining a lot more than I expected. It's really coming down, and the red flag in the end was inevitable. And of course at that point, Martin Brundle on commentary, there was a lot of people saying, had we started at the original race time, we still would have got in some good racing. There still could have been some excitement, for 10, 15 laps before we even got to that heavier stage when the red flag came out. But of course there was a delay, and then followed then by an either lengthier one, whereby the drivers were sitting around out of their car watching the weather. Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? The safety car, to be fair though, it didn't even go out. Again, the FIA was sort of sat there. Apparently there was a conflict of opinion. They weren't really sure what was the best way to get the race underway. But eventually, after many, many minutes of waiting, we finally got that 10-minute warning that we were going to go racing, that the drivers were going to be tested, were going to be challenged, they were going to go out there and face these conditions head on. And the race clock then did indeed start, again behind the safety car at first. Straight away, Latifi, he went off, he went into the barriers. Luckily for him, he was able to actually drive it out. He didn't go in there with too much speed. Also Lance Stroll on that same lap there, making contact on the right front. And with the safety car then coming in at the end of the lap, it was going to be a rolling start with Charles Leclerc on pole, of course, getting us underway. And I think Ferrari had a really good initial start. You, of course, had the threat there of the Red Bulls behind them, but I think they got away well. They managed that early pressure, and they actually seemed quite comfortable. The one interesting thing at that point in the race, though, was that Pierre Gasly, because he was actually on the intermediate tyres, given that he was so far back, they, of course, decided to roll the dice with that. And very early on in that race, he was wrestling to keep control of the car. You could see maybe it was a bit too soon, but I think as the laps went on there, on lap 6, 6, he did post the fastest lap. And I think everybody then started to think, okay, when is it going to be the time to go on to Inters? Everybody's on full wet. When is the right moment to go in and sort of capitalise on that and sort of jump the gun? A few came in, Vettel, Yuki Tsunoda, Schumacher, Stroll, Latifi. They were all on intermediates. But for quite a bit of that opening period of the race, the front runners, of course, the eyes all on them, they were unmoved. They weren't too quick, I feel, to jump into that early decision. It was almost the case of, we got to wait and see and get all the data first of all. Hamilton then came in for Inters on lap 16. Sergio Perez also came in lap 17. Lando lap 18. So things then were starting to happen, which of course was when Ferrari pitted Charles Leclerc, and that of course was a decisive moment in the race. We didn't know it at the time, but they brought him in there on lap 18, but it would not be the last time that Charles came into the pits. And there was a good battle between Hamilton and Esteban Ocon. Hamilton was all over the back of him, looking to get past, of course, so difficult that it is in Monaco, and you can see here, there was contact between the two of them. Hamilton said that Ocon turned in on him, and there was a bit of damage there. You could actually see it clearly on the front wing. Hamilton not happy at all. And later on in the race, took a long time, but Ocon was eventually penalised for that move. But I think then the big moment came. That was the most important moment of the race there, because suddenly then we had big decisions on the pit wall, because it was Ferrari that did blink first. They did a double stack there with Sainz coming in first and then Leclerc following him in. But the problem is that they told Leclerc to pit, to box, and then said, stay out. And it was a complete lack of communication, no real clarity. Leclerc did not know what was happening. He was in the pit. His tyres were changed, but then Red Bull responded immediately after there, just one lap on. It was the overcut they were going for. They stayed out longer. They then came in with Perez first. They also double stacked. Max then coming in second, and it worked out for both of them, because then Sergio Perez comes out ahead of Carlos Sainz, and incredibly, Max Verstappen ahead of Leclerc. So Leclerc there, suddenly on pole to fourth. He was absolutely furious. And I think given then that the order had changed so dramatically and that suddenly Red Bull, it was a direct shift. They were in control of the race. But there was another big moment, and it came courtesy of Mick Schumacher. Huge crash there was on lap 27 there. Thankfully he got out the car, he was all okay. But you can see there, the car ended up in two separate pieces. The gearbox at the back completely taken clean off. Now originally there was a full safety car deployed after this accident, but shortly after, the whole session was red flagged on lap 30 with all of the cars there returning to the pit lane. And of course then you had the option, if you did choose, to change tyres. And you had Perez, of course, then the drivers out of the car again waiting for things to resume. He started third. He was then leading the Grand Prix. Leclerc, like I say, he was absolutely furious. It's very rare, of course, the drivers get a chance during the race to sort of go back in and have a word with the pit wall, to have a word there with those who were making the calls. And I'm sure they were not happy to see him, because he was not happy, and look, rightly so. And it was then confirmed once again that the race would resume under a rolling start again. Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, they both had new medium tyres, but it was Leclerc and Sainz who opted for the hard. They were 10 years old, both of them there. They weren't new hard tyres, but they went for the harder compound, mediums for the Red Bulls. And straight away then, almost immediately after the restart, Sergio Perez, he did lock up, going into the corner, a big lock up there. Luckily for him, he didn't lose too much time, and there wasn't too much that was lost in that moment. But it was then indeed confirmed that it would be a timed race. The 2-hour countdown was coming into play. There was just a countdown then of time, minutes and seconds up there instead of the number of laps remaining. And I think what we didn't see from Red Bull was those medium tyres ever come into life. Because I think we were expecting there from that restart that they were going to have some real pace, that maybe Max would be on the back of Sainz, maybe then Perez could really pull away out the front with that initial burst of life from the medium tyres. But it didn't really happen. Ferrari stayed very close to them, and of course as that race went on then you were thinking, are those harder compound tyres, are they going to come into play? Are the Red Bulls going to fall away? Are they going to start to grain? Is the gap really going to close up? But back in midfield there was a big train forming there behind Fernando Alonso. He was really holding up Lewis Hamilton. It was desperately again trying to get past one of the Alpines. He will not be sad to see the back of these Alpines today, but you know what it's like around Monaco. It is so difficult there when all the cars are bunched up together to find a place to overtake. And it was actually quite funny, because moments after that, Alonso put his foot down. He was sort of managing his tyres, taking care of everything, and then everything is sort of bunched up, and he went, okay then, I'll see you later. He actually went off into the distance, setting a fastest lap in the process. Alex Albon retired from the race. They're joining Mick and also Kevin Magnussen as the retirees from this race. And there was an incredible save, I have to say, from Guan Yu Zhou. He lost the rear of the car there, completely and utterly losing control. He looked to be going into the barrier, but he managed to catch it, managed to save the car there before it did go off. Fantastic from him. And there was also one earlier on the race as well from Carlos Sainz in that position. Really, really good saves from those two today. But then it came down to those final laps. So when the countdown really was ticking, and certainly then just moments left in this race, what we saw, I think, was a really good ending. To see the front four in the way they were, Perez, Sainz, Verstappen and Leclerc, they were perfectly separated, weren't they? Red Bull, Ferrari, and they were all within a second of each other. And in any other race, that would be a dream scenario, wouldn't it? That you'd have the two teams battling it out in that way, every single one of them in with a chance. But at Monaco, it's so difficult, because I think even with Perez's tyres falling off, and I think there was some serious graining on there, Sainz also said after the race that he was also suffering with his tyres too though, but even with that gap closing, they were able to hang on. And I think Perez, you've got to give him huge credit there. He really did manage the pressure well, because Ferrari, they were on him. Sainz was putting him under pressure every single corner, and around Monaco, we all know it only takes one mistake. You know, you saw that in qualifying, one lapsing concentration, 1 second where you're not quite on it, you're in the wall, and it's game over for you. So Perez did so well there. Sainz, I felt, didn't want to take too much of a risk. He didn't want to put too much on the line, because obviously he had Max behind him as well, and that was the key today for Red Bull. They had Perez up front, but they also had that support as well from Verstappen. Leclerc was in 4th place. He was absolutely, couldn't believe that he was in that position given where he started, and as he crossed the line to become a Monaco Grand Prix winner, honestly, guys, I couldn't be more happy for Sergio Perez. Given what happened, of course, back in Barcelona last weekend, he felt as though the victory may have been taken away from him in that moment. But this is the perfect way to hit back for him, to make sure that in this race, to be fair to him, he'd been strong all weekend long. Qualifying, of course, he did have the crash at the end, but even in all the practices, he was strong, so competitive. And I think over the course of the weekend, Perez certainly one of the most outstanding performers. And I think Max Verstappen today, he's going to be so happy too. Obviously, he's not going to ever say, third is brilliant, that's what I'm aiming for, but given the situation, he for me has struggled a bit this weekend. In qualifying he wasn't quite there, of course it was brought to that premature end, but even in the race, to start 4th, make up a place here and finish ahead of Charles Leclerc, that is massive for Verstappen. Amazing day it has been for Red Bull, and an absolute nightmare for Ferrari. Started with a front row lockout. You got Leclerc on pole. You got Sainz in second. It's unacceptable to lose that many places for Charles Leclerc. He will certainly feel as though his race was messed up. That's the way that he'll feel today. So unhappy, and I do feel bad for him again. He's had bad luck in his home race. But what this means is, for the Drivers' Championship, is that Max Verstappen stays on top there, leading right now by 9 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. But look at Perez. He is really rising and putting pressure on those above him. He's now into triple figures on 110 points. George Russell continues to sort of go under the radar in these races. But again today, he's right there. He's going about his work very quietly, but he's right up there as well. And Sainz will feel as though he should be doing better in 5th place. And when it comes to the constructors, Ferrari, like I say, will be so disappointed with how today went. Mercedes again picking up points today, but not really where they want to be. But it's a great weekend yet again for Red Bull Racing, who lead in both standings. So that there, guys, was the full race cap today, the race review from what we saw in the Monaco Grand Prix. I think right now there's a lot of contrasting opinions about Monaco. Some people think, maybe this should be the last race here. Is there enough opportunities to make the racing exciting? You know about the history, you know about the prestige of Monaco, but when it comes down to the actual racing, you're looking at the overtaking opportunities, you're looking at the fact there that year upon year we come back here and it just doesn't quite seem to be happening. What are your thoughts there about this track, about its future in Formula One, and what are your thoughts on our winner today, Sergio Perez, winning the Monaco Grand Prix? An incredible moment for him and a brilliant day for Red Bull. Let me know your thoughts on the race and indeed this style of video, guys. Something new, something different today. I will see you soon, and I thank you indeed for watching. But until next time, As always, it's Formula One!